So we go from this to this in the space of about 6 months. And the exact reason we do it is for the likes of this. Now look, you're going to say, why do I pump money into a small cap company or pump money into a young chick in order to get them to a mature level to give you little bits of profit every day? And it's exactly what we're going to talk about in this video. So think of her as a small cap company. One more thing, jump into the comments and let me know, what will we call her? Think of her as a large cap company, like Tesla, Nvidia, Microsoft, Amazon, you name it. So my name's Liam, I am one of the Hustle Brothers here. And look, it is a strange way of describing investing, but I like to do it a little bit different now and again. I do relate everyday work, such as farming, in a way that relates to everyone, and how simple it can be to correlate between investing and everyday things like hens. Look, from a young age, hens are what taught me the fundamentals behind investing. And I'm going to sort of tell you a little bit why it's good to look at some of these simple scenarios and relay it back to the likes of your Horizon Aircraft, your Rocket Labs, Archer, Joby. Look, you name the company, we can relay it back. But guys, before we get into it, do smash the like button if you like this different type of content. I am rolling that out. It's a little bit different to being in the studio, but do you know what? I'm enjoying it. So look, you're going to wonder, why have I brought chicks into this? And why would you invest in small little chicks that don't make you a lot of income for around 6 months? Look, we can relay that back to small market caps or growth companies, we like to call them. We can call it Horizon Aircraft when they're about day old. The Archer and Jobies, they're getting into that teenage years, but they're still not laying yet. They're still not producing me any income. Look, I'm pumping money into them every single day. I'm feeding them. They give me no returns whatsoever, with the hope that one day they will give me some returns. Look, you're going to say it's a lot different with hens, but it's not. The weak die off, like the small companies that don't succeed, die off, fail to exist. But I'm still pumping the same amount of capital into these companies. But the importance of it is you're able to respond in time. So the difference is, investing in some of these small cap companies, it gives a higher potential profit, but it also gives incredible amount of risk compared to just going in, getting your safe dividend stocks or the ETFs. Look, I'm at the stage now, I'm not as young as I used to be. I could go out and buy a mature flock, but why don't I do that? Well, you do find people that are investing tend to sway towards some of these micro caps, these small caps. And I'm not a man for always investing in small caps, but it is something the likes of Horizon Aircraft did teach me. Then look, I've invested in Rocket Lab ever since the $4 range, so you can say I was in it, in the trenches. But it really comes back to me, that everyday young farmer in me. When you didn't have much capital behind you, you were looking for that next big thing. But that is a risky way of doing it too. So you always have to remain vigilant. Look, I'm willing to pump nice amount of capital into the likes of young chicks when I didn't have the money. It did take on an awful lot of risk. You do have a lot of deaths, and then what most people don't think about, you have 50% roosters, 50% hens. Roosters are no good to me at producing eggs. So yes, I get a little bit of income from them, but not to the extent that it's going to pay back anything near the amount of money I've put into feeding them. But look, it's the wins and losses when it comes to investing. You could create a portfolio with older hens, mature hens, that, look, will get you a nice amount of profit straight away. And look, I'm no genius. You could just jump in to the S&P 500 and you'll get a nice amount of dividends back. And I'm pretty sure within the next 10 years, you'll get a nice amount of profit. But look, I know a lot of you hustle brothers aren't listening to me to hear about the S&P 500. There's plenty of channels that vouch for that. You're looking for something different. This is not financial advice. But look, when you get to that mature stage, you really do need to sort of recognize how much growth potential is left in it. Are you happy to stick with the dividends? Like myself when it comes to hens. Am I happy to have a flock that keeps laying, sell the eggs, low amount of profit, but it's steady, it comes in every day? Look, that's a solid method when you have the amount of hens I have now, because I'm happy with the dividends. Because when you accumulate, you get a large amount of hens or a large amount of shares, and then your dividends start paying massive rewards. The other option, I could sell them. So I've held them 6 months and sell them on to someone that is happy to stick with either getting slower growth or getting dividends from the likes of these. And you need to think about that with Archer and Joby. And you're saying now, why are you speaking about Archer and Joby paying dividends yet? Well, why are you long-term investing in these if you're not looking at the end goal, the end game? I'm talking about a 6-month time horizon, which, look, in farming, it's a mid sort of term. You could call it long-term in poultry farming. Look, their actual production span would be about 5 years, but for immense production, it'd be, about 2 years. So I need to think, constantly looking at my portfolio, the amount of space I have, the amount of capital I have behind me. Do I sell on my hens? Is it time for me to sell on my shares? Or is it time for me to just keep doubling down, keep it accumulating, like I'm doing at the moment? I buy young stock, I hatch young stock. And there's another sort of thing we can do with that. It can either be ETFs, where I let the mother hatch the chicks all by herself. Safe way of doing it. I'll get a solid return out of it. I could get, look, an 80-90% hatch rate. Or I can do it manually, where I incubate. I do both methods. And same with my own portfolio. You can either do a solid return with an ETF, but I'm only going to get maximum 10 eggs under her. With the likes of an incubator, it's a lot more risky. It's a lot more effort and due diligence behind it, like investing in individual stocks. But I can get more of them in there. Look, I'm going to have a lower success rate with my chicks, but because I've exposed myself to that many of them, the high performance will be there. Look, we are the Hustle Brothers. We're on the road to 5,000. I really can't believe it. Guys, never thought it would get this far. Do bang the subscribe button. And yeah, if you want more weird content like this, do let me know.